Welcome back to a beautiful April 24th. It really feels like we've hit spring here now. We are now in t-shirt weather actually. So things are looking pretty good out here today. Soil temperature has come up drastically since yesterday and weeds are growing like crazy. And everybody, of course, is trying to get in the field at the same time. However, you can see behind me up there, there is some threatening clouds. So we'll see what that ends up doing. Fields are looking great. I'm just going to turn the camera around here. You can see this field here. This is going to be going into an alfalfa grass mix with some spring wheat as a cover crop. And there's quite a few dandelions in this field here. So we do have to be somewhat careful when we are spraying for, dandelion, stuff like this ahead of alfalfa. Alfalfa can be pretty sensitive to some residues. In this case, we're going to come in here with just plain old Express SG or NC0050 as it's called from the Precision Pack. And that should do a pretty good job of getting them cleaned up. Here you can see in some of this volunteer covered ground, which has heavy cover, soil temperature is still relatively cool this morning, even with our temperatures here. We're sitting at 5 degrees, so we are good to go as far as planting goes. And with this heavy trash cover, we've got some pretty good moisture availability as well. You can really tell in some spots here, there's a lot of kochia starting to come up here now that soil temperature is warmer. This winter wheat is going to be pretty dirty if we don't take care of it in crop here. The winter wheat itself is a little slow here in the dry land. It was a little hard to get established, but now the kochia is really starting to come. Well, this week with the warmer temperatures, we are starting to see some emergence of Russian thistles. So these guys here are still pretty small, but they are getting going pretty quickly. Now that things are moving, things are really getting going. Well, not just kochia growing here anymore. Now we do have emergence of canola seed as the soil continues to warm up. So these guys, of course, are just a cotyledon stage right now, but they'll start growing pretty quick. And you know how volunteer canola is. It can be difficult to keep under control. This field here is just getting seeded to soft white wheat as we speak. Seeding depth so far is looking pretty good, between 3/4 to an inch deep. We've got good moisture here. We're into the moisture by about a ½ inch. So things here are looking up. I'm sure we're going to get germination here really quick with the soil temperature of about 10 degrees, and we're about a ½ inch into the moisture. So things should get going here really fast. Well, it only took a couple days of warmth and sun, and the canola is really starting to germinate. So all this volunteer canola coming up pretty thick here. This field is going into barley, so the best way to control canola is going to be to use a residual product. In this case, we'll be using FMC's NC00439 from the Precision Pack machine, which is the same product as Express Pro. One thing I'm seeing quite a bit of this week is fields that look like this. This is winter wheat stubble from last year. And winter wheat, if it's not controlled when it germinates in the fall, can be quite a troublesome volunteer in the spring. You can see there is quite a few here that are only just one leaf, and there's not a whole lot of green showing on them. So best chance for control is to wait a little bit, be a little patient before trying to get in a field like this. We need to allow these to, fully green up to become hittable targets with our spray solution in order to get them under control. If you're coming in here with something like, another wheat or a durum, obviously you're going to want to keep that wheat under control. Quite a bit more flicksweed is now becoming visible. As you can see, it's gotten quite a bit bigger since last week. So this stuff does grow very, very fast. By the time we're at herbicide timing in crop, this stuff, it's called Christmas trees for a reason. A little bit cooler here Wednesday morning. We're about 6 degrees here now with a forecast for some heavy winds this afternoon, but things are coming along pretty well. One fun thing I'm doing this spring is I have a whole bunch of leftover seeds from my giant pumpkin last year. So if you happen to see something strange growing by your pivot point this spring, well, that might just be it. So who knows? Giant pumpkins are massive users of water. They can use a couple gallons of water a day. So, leaking water off of a pivot pump is a great place for them. We might end up with some giants, who knows. Fall rye is continuing to look better and better as the days go by. This field here is, for the most part, just kind of hitting about the 3-4 leaf stage now on the main stem. So we're going to start picking up some height here relatively soon, and this stuff will really start to get going. Beautiful thing about fall rye is how quickly it gets established and starts to take over. It's pretty competitive with weeds. Here we have some canola stubble getting seeded into barley, and this is a good example of sometimes why it's important to do pre-burn before rather than after seeding. In this field here, there is some dandelions. There's also a bit of kochia. It's pretty thick in some spots here, but it's all still really small. And it would have been a good idea to have hit this with a product like Express Pro or Pre-Pass, something along those lines. Because when the seed drill comes through and it disturbs it, it buries quite a lot of it and does disturb, do a decent job really at cultivating some of these little kochias. But you can see that some of these here are still in the ground pretty good. Like I'm just pulling them out here now. So these ones would still regrow perfectly fine. And of course now they're off on a head start ahead of the crop. We can spray afterwards, but generally you miss a bunch that'll be buried in like these sidewalls and stuff here, and you're just not going to get good coverage on them. And they might stay hidden for a week, to 10 days, and then suddenly pop out, and by the time you see them, they're an inch or 2 inches. They're going to be a lot harder to control. Now a breezy Thursday morning out here. We did have about 1/8 of an inch of rain overnight in the Nobleford area. Farther to the south, there was some snow in some areas, like McGrath, I hear, got 3 to 4 inches of snow, so things are definitely shut down there. But here we're just on kind of a little temporary pause while we wait for things to dry up, and it won't take very long at all. You can see this seed drill right here where he was working last night. We got some pretty good seed depth here. This is barley. It's in about 1 inch. We've got a nice band of treated seed in here, and we're well into the moisture, especially now after last night. So things are looking really good here, and with soil temperatures, things should be germinating really quick. Here in this field, it's just getting seeded to barley. Digging up the seed row here, I found some grasshopper eggs. So there was a little cluster here. I did disturb them. You can see one here right in the sidewall here of the seed trench wall. So there's a few of them mixed in here. These guys are they're pretty little. See if I can get a better view of them here. So it'll be interesting to see when these guys start to hatch. Given the right conditions, they can hatch pretty early in the crop cycle and get established. Last year we were fortunate they hatched quite late. Here in that patch of burned out ground, it has now been seeded into barley. This was just recently done here, I believe, last night. So I know it was a little difficult to get into the ground here because it was packed a little bit from manure application as well as some erosion. But the barley is in for the most part about 1/2 inch deep. And with that moisture that we got last night, it should be germinating right away, which would be great because we really want to get something green established on this before we get more wind. Another week has gone by on my small little plant tests here, and you can see the results are still fairly consistent. Once again, we've still, on both of them, we've got Control, Nature's Aid Early Riser, Humaterra, and Humaterra Plus Early Riser. You can really see that Humaterra Plus Early Riser is way ahead of the others as far as staging, height, and plant health goes. And the Nature's Aid itself, if you look at the height, is doing very well as well. It is taller on average than the Humaterra alone. So I think we definitely have some beneficial interaction going there. We have had a few fatalities. There is a couple plants here have died from the saline level, but we do also have some new emergence in the control side. So we do now have 6 plants, actually 7 here, although this one doesn't look very good, are coming up. So emergence, not too bad. It's actually getting fairly consistent, although this one was off to a much earlier start. On the tomatoes, things are still looking pretty similar as well. Once again, we have the same order of operations going on here, and the Humaterra and the mixed are both looking really good and are way ahead. The control, you can see in comparison, is much smaller, especially when we look at it this way. So still some interesting results. Finding lots of insects today, just scraping around in this sandy field here. This is winter wheat stubble, very sandy ground. Looking for grasshopper eggs, which I have found. There's a little cluster of them right here, as you can see. So definitely interesting to see as many of these guys as I have been seeing the last couple of days. That long egg laying season, going well into October last year, has definitely led to a pretty high amount of eggs in the ground. And right beside it here, I found a cutworm. I'm not sure exactly which species this is. Some of them are very similar looking. Could be, pale western or dingy. But interesting to see this guy already. So these can be a serious concern. This field is going into canola. So cutworms can be a major pest to canola. So make sure you have the appropriate seed treatment. Well, here's something you don't see too terribly often. We have some volunteer canola from the fall that has survived the winter. This can occur if it is sufficiently insulated for the winter, say by an early snowfall that doesn't melt or something along those lines. So interesting to see that. There's just a couple here in this little patch. I haven't seen too much else this spring. And that'll be it for this week. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.